I'm Christina Joy. I'm the events coordinator here. Welcome. We are having a book talk today. We are having a full house. Shout out to y'all for coming out. Tonight we are here for a very special event. The author, Santa Molina-Marshall, is here. Clinical social worker in the house. I say this proudly because I am an MSW myself. So trying to tell social workers is a very thankless job. I'm telling you. And tonight we will have Nina Riley and Mama Diane Smith in conversation with Santa Molina-Marshall on her new book, Running Through Darkness, Memoir of a spiritual warrior. My goodness, I couldn't even get that out. That's a powerful title. Okay. So, without further ado, we will have Nina introduce Santa Molina. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina.
Thank you.
Peace and blessings, everyone. Thank you for coming out this evening. Santa Molina-Marshall is a clinical holistic psychotherapy therapist and somatic experience practitioner. She's been in the field of trauma and sexual violence since 1990. She's won an award from the National Sexual Violence Resource Center, a Visionary Voice Award for her outstanding work in the field of anti-sexual violence in her community.
Can you bring the mic to your mouth for us?
For 8 years.
I need to start that over. Everybody knows the first one. Do it back? Run it back. Okay. Run it back. They couldn't hear you.
All right, all right, this is fun, right, y'all? Okay. Santa Molina-Marshall is a clinical licensed holistic psychotherapist and somatic experience practitioner. She's been in the field of trauma and sexual violence since 1990. She's won a Visionary Voice Award for her outstanding work in the field of anti-sexual violence within her community. For 8 years, she held the position of Director of Counseling, followed by a year of interim Executive Director at the DC Rape Crisis Center. Prior to her employment with the center, Santa served as Lifeline for Kids project coordinator for the Center of Adoption Support and Education. Presently, she manages her private practice in Washington, D.C., and is a national and international speaker on women, trauma, mindfulness, grief and loss, compassion fatigue, neurobiology of trauma, and other topics. She has been providing services to the community. Still up here?
Use your outside voice.
Okay. She has been providing services to the community for the past 26 years. She has developed a holistic approach to addressing the needs of survivors of trauma that encompass addressing the body, mind, and spirit. Ms. Molina-Marshall is a compassionate and dedicated clinician. All right. Santa.
Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. It is really such a thrill. I feel my heart beating. My face is warm. And I am so very grateful. Thank you so very much for being here tonight. So before we even start, I just really want to ask us all to just take a moment for yourself, whatever that means. Take a breath, look around, make yourself comfortable. Come into this moment and come into your body in this moment. You may be here because you love Santa and you just wanted to support me. You may be here because you are looking for an answer to how to get on your healing journey. You may be here because there's a loved one that just got wounded and you want to know what to say. That's what my book is all about. So take a moment and honor while you're here. why you are here. Honor why you are here. Just notice your body. No judgment, no question, just noticing. Notice your breath. Is it enough? Do you need to take a deeper breath? Notice that with each exhalation, you can decide to be that much more present and here as you exhale. Notice what speaks to you, and please know that we're here to talk. It's a deep, what did Christina say? We're going deep? Yeah, we're going deep. It is a deep topic, but it's also a topic of love, of joy, of resiliency. And so I thank you for being here tonight. Thank you. I want to introduce to you a dear friend. Mama? Did I hear Mama Diane Smith? Can I also use that? Mama Diane Smith? I've never called her Mama Diane Smith. But Diane Smith is a friend of mine for many, many years, probably close to 20, if not more. She was introduced to me by another friend who's here, Harriet. It was Harriet's yoga teacher. And she told Diane about my yoga class, and the rest is history. Yeah. Diane would say that she was recommended to a masseuse, and she ended up with a dear friend. She says, so I received some relief for my neck and found a new friend. I'm a retired social worker who served over many years a number of sexually and otherwise abused children. She says, I worked for the DC government's Department of Mental Health Commission, and before that, for one of their maternal and infant care and child and youth programs. And so thank you, Diane. How many years? 30 years this woman gave us in social work. So thank you, Diane. She believes she's retired and probably working less these days, but nonetheless, she's super involved in helping our community and in helping me help others. Thank you, Diane. So Diane will be interviewing me or be my conversation partner. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Not too low.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great, great. It is wonderful seeing so many of you here this evening. And Santa and I thought that a good way to do a big part of the conversation this evening would be to answer some of the questions that were submitted by all of you to Santa regarding the writing of her book, regarding abuse, regarding domestic violence. So we're going to spend the first many minutes, going over some of the questions that were submitted, which were really quite thoughtful and also quite full. The first question that I think is asked, and it certainly ran through my mind a number of times as I read your book, how did you know that there was another side to search for? How did you know that there was something beyond all of the visceral and horrifying incidents that you experienced as a child? I mean, did you have some inner vision that said there is something to reach for, there is something to go for, because you did not have what we usually have and need, and that is wonderful models from whom we imitate as children what we want to be and what's right, what's wrong, what's good, what's bad, what's enjoying, what's pleasurable, and what's uncomfortable. So that's a beginning question that I wanted to put out to you and have you discuss with us.
Thank you, Diane. That is indeed a very important question because sexual abuse affects people differently, right? Depending on who you are, depending on where you were when the experience happened, how well um, taken care of you were, how much you felt that there was support, that there would be support, that there will be justice. All of those things affect your experience in healing and surviving. For me, however, it was more about recognizing that there had to be more. I remember as a young kid, um, particularly after these experiences, just really feeling like there has to be. I believed in the ability of the human being to love and to care. And I believed that that's all I needed was love and care. So when I was experiencing a lot of distress, one of the things that I did in New York City was walk into the churches. There used to be a time when churches were left open. And I would walk into, not for the word of the man about God, but just because I needed solitude, I needed quiet, I needed beauty. There's a piece in the book where I speak about how beautiful the cathedrals in New York City are, were, still are, even here. And just walking in and sitting and listening to my own thoughts and feeling like I'm a good person. I don't know why this is happening to me, but there has to be other people like me, right? And eventually, Diane, connecting with the higher power in me. So what I found in those churches, in my silence, in my contemplation of the beauty, really was that inner part of me that was loving and caring, that deserved to be cared for, and that knew that there had to be more. That's what I found. I found, some may say, the God in me. I found the part of me before I was wounded. And I remember being a good kid. Does that speak to? Mm-hmm.
I wonder if many people feel, and I am one of those who feels this, that within each of us there is a God. And it is our job to come to know that God, to make that God manifest as we live within ourselves and as we live with others. And I wonder if you could talk at all about whether or not that's exactly what you felt or some of what you felt and how you took practical steps to make that happen.
Well, what I could tell you about God is that God was an interesting thing in my home. I was raised Catholic, and we were sent off to church on Sunday. Most often, I hate to say, with some kind of a curse. Get the hell out of here. Go to church, leave us alone, quiet down. It was a way of getting rid of us the kids, right? Go to Sunday school. So that's one thing about God. The other thing was that the God that I grew up with was a God that punished and a God that celebrated, and there was nothing else, right? So there was a lot of fear about what God would do to you if you didn't do whatever. Yeah. I, again, at an early age, knew, because I knew what God was supposed to represent. And God was love. That's what I was understanding in my little mind, right? That God was love. And so God was not going to punish me, is what I decided, right? Maybe the God that was white, bearded, because we had a picture of him. You know, we had a picture. Maybe that God, I don't know about that God, but the God that I was beginning to know in me was love, was peace, was goodness, right? So I decided that there had to be a God somewhere that was good and just and not at all what my parents told me. And I went off to find it. Right in here, I found it. Does that?
One of the major goals of all of us in life is to make positive attachments.
Mm.
Most often it is via our mothers, the primary object, the primary person with whom we attach. that we begin to make our own identity. And of course, if the mother is a positive object and not a defective one, the job is good and easy. But in your instance, your mother had so much defective qualities within her, as did other members of her family. And I wonder how you were able to make the attachment to positive, healthy objects, people, and not to replicate attaching to the defective folk. Does that question?
Absolutely. You're talking about healthy and unhealthy attachment. Where did I learn? How did I learn how to attach? And the reality is that today I still struggle with healthy attachment. Don't get too close. Don't be too nice because I will question you. And sometimes it feels suffocating. And I need to tell myself, Santa, that was then, this is now. And you deserve to be loved and cared for and attended to. But there are still moments when I wonder, are they for real? What do they want? Right? I think that what I learned is that it's safe to attach to some people, and that it is my responsibility to constantly question myself when I feel like I am having a difficult time feeling safe with connecting with someone. That I need to ask myself constantly, is this today? Is this yesterday? Is it safe? What helped me was my desperation. I mean, I was desperate for people to help me, desperate for someone to see my pain, right? Desperate to connect. And I think that desperation and then finding some individuals like a school teacher, right, Mr. De La Rosa, the first person who read my essay and said, there's something wrong, let's send you to the counselor's office to talk more about this, right? I attract a lot of people that want to support and help me. And so that's the story. I realized that, no, not everybody's trying to hurt me, even when it feels that way.
You write in your book that you often wondered, why me, Lord? Why me, God? Why have these horrific occurrences come my way and stayed so long in my life? And I wonder, as you have lived and recovered and led a much more positive life, do you ever ask, why me, Lord, in my sibship of so many youngsters? Why did I succeed and the others failed, faltered, and didn't make it? Is that a question that comes to you and you have an answer? Looking at the sibship and all of the troubles within it.
Yeah, why me? Why the abuse? Definitely a question that I asked, but I couldn't spend too much time with that because I had things to do. I couldn't spend too much time thinking about why me? How the hell am I going to get out of here? Is what I needed to figure out, right? And how am I going to dissociate intentionally? How am I going to live in this home with my sister and her husband and get raped, abused, molested over and over again for a year? How do I live this? And how I lived it is in my mind, I went back to those churches, right? In my mind, I went back to places and people that I slightly remembered being helpful. In my mind, I escaped. So I got really good at dissociating. I didn't know that's what I was doing. I remember my sister often, the sister who was abusive, often asking me, what are you thinking? And I'd say, I don't know, nothing. What do you mean, nothing? Really, nothing. Blank. Creating space.
But in your instance, how adaptive that dissociation was.
That's exactly what I was going to say. It's an adaptive, it's what helped. It's what gave me those breaks, right? So today I say to people I work with, it's okay if you dissociate so long as you know it. And then it's not really dissociation, right? But so long as you're aware, and maybe even aware that what you really need is a break. And is there any other way that you can take that break, right? I want to read something about disappointments. My mother It's okay, I got it. Yes, I have it marked in here somewhere. Actually, let me first read to you about a cry for help. Here's a time where me asking for help did not show up. Here it is. When you get my book, you'll find out that there are two different times in my life where I am being sexually abused by my sister and her husband. It was 1 year I left. I didn't leave. My father took me to the Dominican Republic and left me. And the only way out of the Dominican Republic after that 1 year was to call my sister, my perpetrator, and say, please help me. Right? And she made me agree. She said, I will help you if you stop trying to F with my husband. I said, I promise I'll never do that again. And I was 15. So she sent for my brother and I from the Dominican Republic. And then that was maybe another year of the experience in their home until I was able to figure out, with the help of someone else, how to get out. Went to family court, told a story. My mother was there, my brother was there, my sister, perpetrator, and her spouse were there. The social worker who worked with me said, tell me your story. I told her that my sister and her husband were sexually abusing me. That cannot be allowed, she said. I will make sure to explain to the judge everything that's going on. I don't remember all the details, but all that I remember is that I trusted that woman. I knew that she was going to be helpful. And guess what, guys? I never saw her after I left the courthouse that day. And here's what I want to share with you. What she did was send me to a group home. So here it is. I walked into the group home empty-handed. As I sat outside the group home's office, girls came over and checked me out. Bewildered and feeling sorry for myself, I sat there quietly waiting. Mrs. So-and-so will be checking you in soon, the escort from the court said. As she disappeared into the office, she left after that without even saying goodbye. The girls looked mean, angry. It seemed like they were annoyed by the fact that I was sitting there. I did not know whether to smile or look down at the ground. I avoided eye contact with them. The last thing I needed was for one of them to start something with me. I wondered where I was and what would happen to me next. I wondered if I had made the right decision at court. I wondered if I should have told on Lucy and Papito, my perpetrators. Santa Molina, come in and have a seat, said the woman in the office. I tried reading the woman. I was good at that. I wondered what she thought of me. I was trying to figure out what I thought of her, what I could expect. The woman was very matter of fact. I could tell that she meant business. There's no drinking, smoking cigarettes or pot or consuming illegal substances, she said to me. Do not open that front door. If you do, the alarm will go off. Everyone here gets buzzed in, buzzed out. So you get the sense, right? In the midst of all of this, she said, whether you're in school or not, working or not, everyone is up at 6 o'clock. You're responsible for your chores, check in with your door monitor, and just went on and on and on. I listened to her words, but their meanings were fading. I felt sleepy and was overwhelmed. I just saw her mouth moving. And I could not understand what she was saying. I came back when she said, and so where are your bags? Do you have anything in your pockets? No, I have nothing. I just came from court. That was one of the most horrifying experiences I've ever had. I want you to know I wasn't a truant kid. I never cut class. I was a good kid, remember? I knew that there had to be other people like me, right? But here I was in this group with girls that were on heroin, were pregnant, had left school. I mean, really troubled kids. So it was a horrible experience. I was very afraid. First time smoking pot was at the group home. First time mugging someone was at the group home. I didn't take the money, but I was with the group of girls that did and ran. I didn't laugh, they did. Right? So trust. I trust because I'm a fool. I trust because I love. I trust because I have to. I trust because my body, mind, spirit needs to believe in other human beings, right? I don't know where I went with that or if I even answered your question. But I needed to share that with you.
You answered it in such a wonderful way that it makes me skip and take some of the course of this discussion out of the order that we had thought of it, because I want to say that I want everybody to have some hope, because we're going to talk about some facilities that are around now that treat people very, very differently. And while we still have a long way to go with the whole issue of sexual abuse and kids and treatment of them and mistreatment of them, we've come a far way too. So that you'll see some examples of much, much more humane and positive treatment. So
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm talking something that happened. I'm 61. Someone can do the math when I was 15. So it's been a while. Things have changed.
I was struck as I read your book about how many of your traumas, how many of your incidents within your home and with your family and in your community had subplots. So that every time I thought I had read the very worst of what could happen to someone, there was another layer, another element that took it even to, a more abysmal kind of level. And that kind of subplot, in my thinking and in my experience, is enough to make people lose contact with reality. I mean, you begin to wonder, what the hell is this? This is a horror show that totally surrounds me. But you had the ability to survive that. And I wondered if you had any particular responses to how you responded to the subplots. I mean, I was thinking about the time that your mother had formed a relationship with a lesbian woman, and you pulled the curtain back not only to find her and the woman together, but to find your father in bed with them too, just to compound the issue. And I wonder, how did you move
Well, I
about
want to
the
share a
moment?
little bit about that story because after being married for 35 years, my mom decides she's had it. My father was an alcoholic. He got drunk every weekend, broke things, threw things. My father was physically abusive to my brothers. Right? So I can understand my mother saying, "That's it, I've had it. Amen, finally." Right? Like, please do not stay with partners for the sake of your children when you're being hurt. It doesn't make any sense, right? So I already had resentment towards my mom. Yeah. I also knew that she was found out to be in a lesbian relationship. I didn't have a problem. I didn't know nothing about being a lesbian, but I didn't have a problem with that. What I had a problem was with her hiding it, lying. And here's the thing that, till this day, I still have inside of me as part of the experience of being abused, and that is that don't lie to me. I get confused about what's reality and what isn't already. Don't lie to me, right? My mother lied. She was ashamed, right? It wasn't okay for a woman of her age to leave her husband for a woman. So I suspected that at some point I was going to see my mother and this woman being intimate, right? And I remember waking up that night, that morning for school, actually, not that night. And what woke me up was sounds of lovemaking, of sex. Right now, this is before I go to my sister and get sexually abused, right? And so, with much concern, and this is much better said in the book, but with much concern, I woke up and we lived in a row apartment that didn't have doors. They had curtains. Every entry had a curtain. I flipped the curtain thinking, aha, you see, Mama, I found you. And who I found was my mother, her lover, and my father. And talk about don't lie to me. My father jumped out of the bed, bare naked, butt naked is what I meant to say, and wrapped a sheet around him and ran out to the fire escape. Like I didn't see him. Right? I mean, come on now. And Olympia's onto the sheets, and I'm like, I saw you guys. So, not only had I already had issues with my mother, but that was the day that I also felt like, well, who's this man? I mean, he's a drunk, he's an abuser, and now he's in a threesome? It was just way too confusing. But what was your question? The plots, and the subplots. Yeah. Now here's another little thing about love in my family. My father and my mother were separated maybe for a good, I don't know, it felt like 15 years. My father never stopped loving her. My father still went to her home. My father still said, I'm the man of this house, and you'll never get rid of me. My mom said, okay, come in, you want coffee? Crazy, but, so the plots just continue, and I think that for me, what I realized is that it felt normal. All this craziness felt normal to me. It felt like, well, this is what happens. Isn't this what happens in every family? Which is also the story of a lot of children, particularly adult children who have experienced abuse. Well, what's wrong? Like, isn't this? Yeah, so my dad only got drunk and threw things out the window on Fridays. There are folks out there that threw things out the window every day of the week, right? So there was some rationalizing. Mm-hmm.
But you had some developed strong ego, because while you felt they were normal, you still looked for.
Well, it wasn't my normal. It's not what I wanted.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Good.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't want you to convey that sense.
No. It's not what I wanted. It felt normal, being that it's all I knew, but it's not what I wanted. Right? It's all I knew, but not what I wanted. That being lied to, the being ridiculed, abused, not being able to trust, that wasn't fun. I didn't want that. Yeah.
At a point in your book, you write that at a very early age, you were seen by many as smart and as a leader. And I wonder if you internalized those positive concepts of yourself at an early age, and even if they unwittingly led you to be so aggressive and so forthright in moving forward to make a way for yourself, particularly when you were left in the DR and had to make a way back to the United States for your brother and yourself, and to keep in your mind that, hey, I got to do this within a year or I'll lose my American citizenship, because that just seemed like just an unbelievable feat for you to get that.
There's something about being really desperate. I mean, when I'm in the Dominican Republic, how did I end up going to the Dominican Republic? So I asked my father for help when I was in the group home, and he helped me run away. Right? And the help of running away was running away to the Dominican Republic. He left me with a sister, half-sister, said, I'll be back. A year almost to the day, my dad had not come back. My dad had not sent money to my sister. My dad just dropped us off, my brother and I. Right? So I knew to call my sister. Like, it didn't matter. Whatever it is I needed to do to get back to the States, because I had this story the immigrant story, right? If you're out of the United States for a year, you lose your green card. I knew that was a bad thing. I knew that much, even then, right? So, whatever it took, right? It took calling my sister, and that's what I would do, right? I think that there's something about understanding that I needed to change my life. That it was too painful, too uncomfortable, too unfair, right? And that there was nothing I could do about growing up in a very dysfunctional, abusive home, but there was something I could do about how I would live the rest of my life. And I went out to do that. Also, the being born in a home where there was so much emotional neglect meant I was on my own. And this thing about being smart, well, that's what my perpetrator said. You're so smart. You're going to account to so much. You're going to be the doctor in the family. You're smarter than anyone else. Right? I believed it. Which is why he had such a grip on me. Right? Because he groomed me. He made me feel so special. Right? That I wanted to be connected, associated. Right? So yeah, I believed that I was smart. I believed that I was resilient. And I believe that I had the magic to change people. It started by me trying to change my dad. I was the one that kept him, sometimes, from throwing things out the window or hurting my brothers. Right? So I learned to depend. I almost feel like Whitney now. I learned to depend on me. Come on, guys, line up. Okay, I'm good. You're good. We're good. It's trauma, and we can heal from it. Right? So I learned how to depend on myself. And again, sometimes I don't know how to ask for help. I mean, that's the growth, right? That's the edge today. Yes, help me. Thank you very much. Here's what I need, right? But that's why. I learned how to be resilient, independent, because there was no one to depend on. Yeah? And so I think that I go after what I want. Nobody's going to give it to me. Nobody gave it to me. Right? So I think that there's a drive. And my issue today is can I back up a little bit? Can I let other people enter that space and help and take care of? But I don't need anybody. Hear me? I don't need anybody. And that's not true, folks. We all need each other. But that was my upbringing. I could not need of others. I would have died because they weren't available. By the way, I want to say a couple of things outside of the question. God had nothing to do with my healing, except for I thought of something greater than myself. Right? So I want you to know, people ask me, so is this about like healing has to do with God? No, it has to do with spirit. Right? The spirit of whatever that thing is that's greater than me. Right? So connecting to that, the resilience, and then realizing that I could do whatever it is I wanted to do, that I could if I put my mind to it, if I asked for help, if I stayed on course, right? Also, the other thing that's really significant is this idea of healing myself. People ask, and you were one of them. When I met Diane, I had a brochure. Do you want to tell them or you want me to tell them? I had a brochure that said, I'm a psychotherapist, I'm a massage therapist, I'm a yoga teacher, I'm a minister. And she was like, I was a little like, who is this woman and what's wrong with her? Maybe she didn't say it that way. Am I right? Yeah, you're very right. Yeah. And I want you all to know that it wasn't like, oh, I want to be a holistic psychotherapist, so let me go and do all these things. It was Santa discovering what was going to help me. Right? Movement was huge to me, still is in my healing journey. Right? Dancing, moving, understanding that there's energy in my body and I had to get it out. Right? So I became a yoga teacher. Why? Because I did the 30-day yoga, weight loss yoga program. And it was like, oh, this made me feel better. I didn't lose any weight, by the way. But it made me feel better. Yeah, so guess what I did? Anybody? Yes? Yes. Tell us, what did I do? I went and became a yoga teacher. Right? So I'm just sharing. Massage. Oh my God. Massage school was great until they had me roll on my back and they want to massage my butt. That was not funny. That was not funny, folks. Right? But then I thought, oh shit. The body holds information. I knew about the body holds a score before the body holds a score was a book. No offense to those big gurus, right? So I'm just saying that that's what it was. It wasn't, oh, I do things. It was more like I need things. And I need to try this. And because I'm good and I'm loving and I want to be of service to others, because that, by the way, is my ministry and my mission. And if you've worked with me, you know I'm not just your typical therapist. You know that, right? It's my ministry. I also knew I needed to gather tools, right? Because this person right here, talk therapy was enough for me to let go of some of the shame, the blame, the grooming stories. It was enough for that. But for the rage that I felt in my body, for the anger, the sadness, the depression, I needed something. I needed drums and I needed to dance and I needed so much more than just talk.
And I think that in the back of your book too, you cover just the wide range of wraparound services that you had and how they all worked collectively
Absolutely.
to bring you to where you are. So it wasn't any one model or any one practice.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. How are we doing with time? Okay. 10 to 8. So we have some time.
I'm going to just a couple more questions. You write in your book that neither you nor your younger brother Antonio had children, but your sister, Layla, has 2 sons and they have offspring. And I want to comment that what you did in recovering and revamping yourself, you did not only for yourself, but for posterity, because your nephews and their children just live such wonderful lives that are free of all of the horror and all of the confusion and all of the duplicity and everything else that you all had to deal with. And I wonder, can you talk a little bit about what you feel in terms of your role as tia or aunt?
Yeah, I think that, what I want to say about that first is that I really do believe that any work we do for ourselves, this is a personal belief, that whatever work I do for myself in terms of healing relieves and releases past generations. I'm talking about the dead. Yeah. Right? It begins to change this generational pattern. And that whatever I do today, whatever you do today, is going to change the next generation, right? It's systems theory.
So this is intergenerational health, not intergenerational wealth.
That's right. Unfortunately, no, fortunate, because you know what? I can still get wealth. So I'm not healthy, I can still get wealth, right? But what it is breaking the intergenerational cycle of abuse and trauma, right? That's what it is. So yeah, I have 2 nephews, Kevin and Nilsson, Sulema's son, and they are the best dads. They're not perfect. By no means, they're not perfect. Right? But they are the best dads. My great niece, one of 3, how many grandchildren do you have? 6? So one of the girls just made 15. She told her parents she wanted to have a destination quinceañera. And guess what? She got a destination quinceañera to the Dominican Republic. And there were 13 family members there to celebrate her, right? I shared my birthday forever, never had a birthday party by myself and my brother, who was born October 31st. I'm November 1st. We had to have the party together, share the cake, share everything. This child gets to go to DR. And guess where her 13-year-old sister, when she becomes 15, is going? She wants a destination quinceañera in Colombia. And guess who's already planning? Their mom. Yeah. So change, right? Change. Yeah. My little great nephew, he's 12.
Yeah.
He's 12.
13 in November.
He's going to be 13 in November, says the proud grandma. He's a black belt in Taekwondo, and so is his sister, who's only
His sisters are 9 and 10.
9 and 10-year-old. That's the new family, right? I got sent away to summer camp to some person's house that looked nothing like me, yeah, where I wet the bed every night and was so embarrassed the next day, right? They treated me well. They had goodies, and it was out in the country, and they were white, so they looked good and smelled good, and right? To me back then, that was life. Yeah. Every year I got sent away to somebody else's home. I was free summer camp. These girls are going to DR in Colombia. So yes, it has been turned around. Absolutely. And I'm so proud of my sister and proud of myself, but most of all, proud of those two men. What great fathers. What great fathers. That's a great question. Thank you.
I'm going to close this segment, and I know we're going to come back and have more discussion, but I'm going to close this segment with a quote. I think a beautiful quote is, "Forgiveness is the fragrance that a violet sheds upon the heel that crushes it." And Santa has forgiven so much, and I ask you, does that fragrance permeate your environment? Do you sniff it each day, and does it infuse your being?
Here's my crushed violet. Right here, right? Yes. Yes. Brings me great joy, I feel like I'm a miracle, to be honest with you. I'm being so very transparent. It's like, how did I make it? How did I make it? It's a miracle. And I'm very grateful, and I want to use all of it. I want to use all of that miracle, and I do. So thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, I want to pause and maybe ask you all to take a deep breath. Notice if you need to stand up, sit right back down. Just take a moment to take in what may have come up for you as I shared my experience. Take a moment to honor your own journey, your own strength, your own courage. There's a deep belief within me that hope is ours. It is my desire to awaken hope in everybody I serve. And until you have your own, I'm willing to share. I'm willing to lend my hope. People ask me all the time, Santa, how do you do this? I've been doing this work now for 35 years. The anti-violence work. How do you do this? And I swear to you that every time I sit with someone, I feel re-energized because I know that they're one step closer to freedom and to reclaiming what's always been theirs. So I don't get tired. I feel hope. I get refueled. This is my next level of healing. This is Santa really giving back. That's all. Yeah? What's next? Do you have some questions, guys? Your own questions? Thoughts?
has any questions, you can raise your hand. I'll give you the mic. Not everybody at once. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Sandra. How would you say that?
Sorry.
That's okay. How would you say that intentionally healing trauma can change people's lives, survivors' lives?
Intentionally healing trauma. Can save survivors' lives. Well, I think that it's more about intentionally healing trauma. Intentionally healing trauma. Intentionally healing trauma so that you can reclaim your life. That's what I would say. I don't know that we're talking about intentionally choosing trauma so that it's so that you can intentionally choosing healing, right? It is so that you can feel better. But at the end of the day, it's really so that you can come back to your own self, to your life, to your body, to the things that are important to you. That's the trade-off. Yeah, you'll feel better. But boy, do I have a better life today. Yeah.
Greetings, Santa.
Greetings.
My question is, at what point did you decide that you needed to share your story with your clients, given that the industry doesn't really promote that? It's about code of ethics and boundaries. Can you talk about how you made that
Cheryl, are you a social worker?
No, you're my coach.
When did I make that decision and how? There's something about being in this field of mental health, therapy, and it's changing, but we're expected to be neutral. And in my work with survivors of trauma, I cannot be neutral, right? I needed someone to see me as a survivor. I needed someone to offer me hope. I needed someone to share a story. I needed someone who was there for me, but willing to take a risk. Because you were asking me to share all my dirt, all of it, and be very vulnerable. I want to know something about you. So that was first thing, Cheryl, from that experience. And then it just made sense. Right? That when someone was saying, I am so ashamed, I know that at 10, I went after that old man. I was fast, like my mother told me. I'd say to her, so do you think that I'm telling you this out of content, right? But I would say at some point, do you think that I, at 13, this tall, deserve to be sodomized? Yes, I do believe that we have to share. The question is when and how and for what purpose. Yeah, when, how, and for what purpose. And never do I allow a client to support me. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm okay today, and you can be okay too. Let's move on. Right?
Anyone else with questions?
Thank you so much, Santa. Am I?
Yes,
Okay.
projecting.
I really appreciate being here. I really appreciate your sharing your story. It takes enormous strength. It takes enormous courage. Obviously, you worked many years on healing, but a lot of people who heal don't share their story with the public in a book. And so I was wondering, how did you get to the point where you decided, because you were sharing it or you were healing, helping others heal, and then you came to a point where you sat down and said, I got to write this. How did you come to the point of writing your book?
I laugh because this book, I've been writing this book for almost 50 years. When I went to visit for the first time a professional writing coach, I had what I thought was a manuscript. I had transcribed all of my journals throughout the years. I had an idea that I would keep these journals, and all I needed to do was transcribe them, and then I'd have a book, right? And that's what I did. I show up to her with my manuscript, just for her to edit, clean it up, help me publish, right? And the first thing she said, you must write from your scars and not your wound. And then we proceeded, right, to discuss the healing of those, because what was in the journals was just all of the pain, right? That wasn't going to be useful to anyone. Yeah. So that was the beginning of me deciding that I wanted to write a book to tell my story for myself, but more than anything to share with other survivors and to offer hope. I also wanted some mental health professionals to know that it was okay. It's okay for you to share who you are. It's okay for you to have survived. Actually, it's so much more than okay, right? People need to know that it's possible. And so that's why I wrote the book. Yeah. You're welcome. Mm-hmm.
Anyone else? Did you want to introduce?
I'm wondering if anyone has any questions about sexual violence, sexual abuse, incest, rape, what it is, why it is, what we need to do about it. Yes, Cheryl.
That's the question. Why it is. I mean, like, what's going on in our community? Not just now, but over time, that intergenerational trauma that you spoke to. I mean, can you just give us some insight on why?
Well, why would take me back to where it began, right? We live in a world that is anti-women. We live in a world that is anti anything that isn't male, cis, and heterosexual, right? So there's a conditioning. There's a sense that it is okay to see women as property, and it hasn't even been almost 95 years when women ceased in this country to be seen as property that could be beaten. So it hasn't been that long. We're breaking trends, generations, right? But this starts a very long time. And there's an industry. There's an industry. Look at our music, look at our television, look at our movies, look at our, look at us. Do we want to ameliorate sexual violence? Do we really? Right? I mean, we do. I know I do. Right? We do. But not the majority, I think. So I think that it's about us standing up and saying no more. This is a culture that I don't want to be a part of, that I will not condone. Yeah? But that's why. It's that simple. Boys have learned. And let me just say something. Not only women get sexually assaulted. I happen to be a little girl. There are plenty of little boys. 1 in 6 boys get assaulted, right? Not only heterosexual straight folks get assaulted. Gay, trans folks also get assaulted, right? But it's a culture of it is okay. That's what we're fighting against. And there's a lot of money in that industry. A lot of money. Yeah. Anybody know what I'm talking about? Lauren, yeah? Thank you, yes. There's a question in the back.
Hi, kind of touching on something that you just mentioned. So coincidentally, last night I was watching a documentary and it touched on this man who he founded this like mega church in Australia. Long story short, but it touched on the fact that he had been traveling the world as an evangelical preacher and sexually assaulting children. And I wondered if he ever, because he had a son who ended up taking over the church for him, and a thought that I was really pondering was whether or not he ever, like assaulted his own son. And so my very general question about sexual assault that I wanted to ask is, are there any statistics about for adults who serially molest or assault children, are they more likely to do that to children outside of their own family, so not their own children, or are they more likely to do that to their own children? I hope my question makes sense.
Yeah, your question is really clear, and I don't have statistics, so I can't give you numbers. What I can tell you, though, is that perpetrators perpetrate anyone that they think they can conquer, right? So most likely, a perpetrator of children is going to perpetrate on their children, on their own children. That's my idea. That's my sense, right? Because they're an easier target to groom and to have access to, right? And so, yeah, that's why we have people, and also it's a power dynamic, right? And that's why we have so many people in power when we compare them to children, abusing children, because they can get away with it, right? Because they can conquer. So my sense is that this person, everybody's different. That doesn't mean that they're not abusing other children, but I have a hard time thinking that they didn't abuse their own. Yeah, in some form. Thank you for that question.
Santa, I have a question. Where does one begin their healing journey?
Here. No. Anywhere, anywhere, anywhere. There is no place to begin. And if I had to answer that question with a straight up answer as opposed to being vague, it begins when you realize that you don't have to do this alone. It begins when you realize that there's help out here, that there's support. I think that literally, that's the first step. It's realizing it.
Could you explain what somatic experiencing is?
Oh, yay.
And why did you add it to your
Yay. So becoming a somatic experiencing practitioner was the last thing I added to my menu. And that was because I had gotten certified and or licensed as a massage therapist, a yoga teacher, a Reiki master, a minister. You already knew I was a social worker. And I felt a little bit like, ooh, who said something about licensing and ethical boards? Oh, if they only knew, right, that I talk about spirit. If they only knew that I ask people to breathe into their body. I mean, whatever, this is, again, some years ago. I decided that I needed to have a model that said that it was okay. And somatic experiencing said, it's okay. Whatever your client needs to get regulated and resourced, that's not going to be harmful to them, is on the menu to offer. Yeah. So somatic experiencing simply is a model that says, and this is true in and out of therapy, that our bodies remember everything, good, bad, or indifferent, that has ever happened to you. Right? That's stored in our bodies. And that in order for me to heal from my traumatic experiences, I not only needed to talk about it, but I needed to talk about it in a way that was paused, supported, right? In very tiny little pieces. I needed to talk about it where I could say, and they almost killed me, and then I could tell a joke. This is me going in and out of the experience, right? I needed to be able to tell the story while someone held my hand and said, you're going to be okay. Don't worry, right? And so somatic experiencing gave me permission to do all the things I was doing and gave me the understanding that triggers are real. Right? That triggers are very real. And that the only thing that helps a trigger, and by the way, we get triggered because it's stored in our bodies, and there's things in our world like, oh, you know what? We have the same bouquet on the dining room table the day they hit me or slapped me or raped me or whatever. These flowers could have been a big trigger. They're not. They're beautiful. Right? But I needed to understand that that was real and that I couldn't say, oh, that's just in the past. That's just something that happened. Right? I needed to understand that it was impacting me in the moment. Yeah? And that the only thing that was going to take that impact away was me feeling, sensing. Yeah? The body does not know language, nor does it know understanding. Yeah? When you have been impacted by a trauma, you lose access to your neocortex and your limbic brain, and you're acting from that survival brain, right? That says, it's not finished yet. I'm still in the fight. I need to find a resource, a beautiful flower that feels soft, a breath. So somatic experience and says, when your clients are having cathartic moments, slow it down, break it up, and introduce resources. Give them the experience, right, that they should have had to begin with, which is something is scary, overwhelming, right? But it passes. And I go into fight, flight, response automatically to whatever's happening, but I don't stay there. It passes, folks. I stayed there. It was a lifetime of abuse. So my nervous system didn't recover. I didn't have breaks where someone soothed and calmed and told me everything was going to be okay, right? So that's what I learned in somatic experiencing. It was extremely important for me to find a way to integrate all that I was offering. But really what they gave me was a true understanding of how to tend to an overwhelmed, activated nervous system. Thank you.
My last question. What are important factors when supporting a survivor?
The most important factor is you're not there to judge it. Believe them. Do not question their realities. Do not tell their story. They break their silence. We call it breaking the silence when you tell, when they're ready and however they want to. Yeah. Offer a listening ear. Ask them what would be helpful. Yeah. Encourage them to seek support and help. Remind them that they're not alone. Yeah. But most importantly, do not pretend to know. I tell my clients, I have my story. I know my story. I also know theoretically, the story of thousands of victims of violence, of sexual abuse, of incest. But I don't know yours. Only you know yours. Right? So allow people to have their own experience.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. This has really been informative and eye-opener, and I'm looking forward to reading your book. I understand that you have dealt with a lot of children around sexual abuse issues, and I wanted to know, are there any guiding principles that can help us to protect children or to reduce the number of children who are subject to such sexual abuse in the home or elsewhere?
Thank you. That's probably the most important question, right? Like, how do we get kids from drowning in this experience? And I think that it's about dialogue. It's about education, right? It's about helping them feel comfortable with their bodies. It's about beginning to talk about sex and sexuality, right? It's about letting them know that there are people out here that could be dangerous, and what it is that they need to do, right? It's about not just saying your body is yours, but treating them like your body is yours. Like, at what age do you stop bathing your little girl's pussy? At what age? Pay attention, right? If she doesn't want you. So, I mean, I could just go on, but you get the idea, right? Yeah. Yes. Yes. Okay, I will. So Diane is encouraging me, and there's a handout at the back of the table, the back of the room there, that has like trends, encouraging trends. So thank you, Diane, for reminding me. Yeah. So I'm just going to read just a couple. Okay. She's Mama Diane Smith. I listen. So here it is. Many mental and physical health professionals in their practice and by the way of their professional associations are intensifying their focus on childhood sexual abuse, particularly childhood sexual abuse. I just said that. As an example, pediatricians have included questions about inappropriate touch with children when they interview them. Pediatricians work closely with art therapists and other forms of therapists to assist their preverbal children. Yeah. Pediatrics is now child abuse, susceptibility, and they have a Diane, you wrote these? I gotta read them. So pediatrics is now has a specific field to address the issues of childhood sexual abuse. Specialists in that field are completing fellowships in child physical and emotional abuse. Not all hospitals have pediatricians that have gone through this program and this fellowship, but most are looking to incorporate. Children's National Medical Center right here in DC has a very sophisticated child abuse unit. The Child Abuse Pediatric Fellowship within Safe Place of Children's Hospital also has beautiful outline programs of how to work with children who've been abused. Teachers, social workers, camp counselors, and so many others in the child-related fields are building curriculums in their training programs that educate their students. So there's a lot going on. There's a lot that has changed. There's a lot of organizations that do work with children and families. And I'm wondering if one person here called Susan Gallucci would want to come up here, right here next to Nina, and talk a little bit about the services that your organization offers to families and children.
Thank you, Susan. I got two.
Yay!
Thank you for that introduction. Again, my name is Susan Gallucci. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I'm the director of the Northwest Center. We're a small nonprofit that has a pregnancy center and maternity home. So we work with pregnant women and children and families, providing housing and also resources. Many have experienced sexual abuse. So some people we see one time and give diapers to, and some people we have ongoing relationships, establishing trust, giving them a safe space, and having a wealth of resources. DC and Maryland and Virginia have a wealth of resources that are available. But I think just to what Santa said is like to believe children, to listen to children, to see if you see unusual behavior, if you don't know, talk to someone, bring something up, say this doesn't seem right. If you don't get the right answer, ask somebody else and just say, I don't know, but something seems, listen to your gut, it might not seem right, and be that advocate and that voice for children.
Thank you, Susan, and thank you for your work. Yes. Anything? Questions, concerns? Time to buy books? Is it the time to go buy a book? And if not today, then another day. Yeah. If you have any questions, concerns, today? All right. Yes.
Are you signing?
I am signing the books, and something I didn't mention. Yay! Something I didn't mention. I also have the start of an online healing community. We meet twice a month, second and fourth Friday of every month. You're welcome to join us. The the community is called From Trauma to Triumph. Enough, right? Let's go ahead and cash in what we've reclaimed. So join if you wish. And if you buy a book today, and if you already have a book, you'll get one of these. You get a 30-day free pass to From Trauma to Triumph. Yeah. So thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting me and supporting this cause. Please share with others. Yeah? Let's get rid of the shame. Thank you.
Oh, so these flowers are from Mama Diane Smith and her sister Marcella, who's walking in the light, and Harriet. And they wrote on here, Ministra, Amiga, Social Worker, Dia, Masseuse, Healer, Maestra. They've had just enough petals for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Nina.